At about 5 o'clock in the morning on April 6th, 2024, two Los Angeles police officers were driving through the San Fernando Valley when they came to a red light, and sitting at that light was a Lamborghini Huracan. Now, seeing a Lamborghini in Los Angeles isn't particularly unusual, but something about this Lamborghini immediately caught their attention. The light was red, the Lamborghini was stopped, and the man behind the wheel appeared to be asleep. The officers pulled their patrol car behind it. Then the light changed, but for a moment, nothing happened. Eventually, the Lamborghini began moving, and the officers activated their lights and pulled it over. At this point, there was absolutely no reason for this to become a car chase. The Lamborghini hadn't been speeding. It hadn't blown through the intersection. It hadn't nearly hit anyone. As far as the officers knew, they'd simply found a driver asleep behind the wheel at 5 in the morning, so they approached the car. And sitting inside was a 51-year-old man named Elliot Dugan. One of the officers began asking him questions, and almost immediately, the answers didn't quite add up. The officer asked Dugan about the Lamborghini. Dugan said it was a rental, but he couldn't produce the registration. So while another officer remained near the Lamborghini, one of them walked back to the patrol car. He entered Dugan's information into the computer, and then he entered the Lamborghini. What came back changed the entire situation, because the Lamborghini wasn't a rental. It had been reported stolen, and Dugan had outstanding felony warrants. The officer now knew that the man sitting inside that Lamborghini was probably going to jail. But there was a problem. Dugan didn't know that the officer knew. Not yet. So the officer walked back toward the Lamborghini. And when he reached the driver's window, he told Dugan to step out of the car. Dugan didn't move. The officer told him again, "Get out of the Lamborghini." And this time, Dugan made a decision. He hit the accelerator. The Lamborghini exploded away from the curb. And within seconds, what had been one of the most uneventful traffic stops imaginable became a police pursuit through Los Angeles. But there was something fundamentally absurd about the chase. The police were trying to catch a Lamborghini Huracan, a car capable of reaching roughly 200 miles per hour, with a patrol car. And Dugan apparently knew exactly what kind of advantage he had. He accelerated hard down Sherman Way. The police followed. The Lamborghini quickly reached more than 100 miles per hour. And remember, this wasn't a freeway. This was a city street. There were intersections, traffic lights, buildings, parked cars, trees. At those speeds, Dugan wasn't really driving through the city anymore. He was covering the length of a football field every couple of seconds. The Lamborghini reached approximately 113 miles per hour, and the officers behind him were rapidly losing ground, but they didn't need to catch him, because the Lamborghini was about to do something neither Dugan nor the police could stop. Only a couple of blocks after the pursuit began, Dugan approached another intersection, and at more than 100 miles per hour, tiny steering movements suddenly mattered. A few inches of movement at the wheel could change the direction of the car dramatically. The Lamborghini drifted toward the center median. Then, it hit. The Huracan struck the median at tremendous speed. The impact launched the car. Pieces began separating from it. The Lamborghini slammed through trees and other objects with enough force that the entire vehicle began coming apart. And then the car effectively split in two. The rear section, the part containing the Lamborghini's V10 engine, was torn away from the passenger compartment. Debris scattered across Sherman Way. Trees were destroyed. Parked vehicles were damaged. And the Lamborghini that police had been chasing only seconds earlier was now spread across a huge section of the street. The officers stopped. They got out. And at first, they couldn't find Dugan. They could see what remained of the Lamborghini. They could see debris everywhere, but the driver's seat was empty. And for a moment, there was a bizarre possibility. Had he somehow survived? Had he climbed out? Had he actually run away? Police began searching the area. Then they found him, but not anywhere near the driver's seat. The force of the crash had thrown Dugan from the Lamborghini. His body had traveled hundreds of feet from the wreckage. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The entire chase had lasted only moments. And that's what makes this story so strange, because almost every point in it offered Dugan another way out. When the officers first saw him, he was simply asleep at a traffic light. When they pulled him over, the Lamborghini was completely intact. When they began asking questions, nobody was chasing him. Even after police discovered the car was stolen, Dugan was sitting inside one of the safest places he could possibly have been at that moment, a stationary automobile. He could have stepped out. He would have been arrested, he would have faced the warrants, and he would have had to answer some very uncomfortable questions about why he was driving a stolen Lamborghini. but he would almost certainly still have been alive. Instead, he looked at the car he was sitting in, a Lamborghini Huracan, more than 600 horsepower, a V10 engine, all-wheel drive, and enough performance to leave an ordinary police cruiser behind almost instantly. And apparently, for a few seconds, that looked like an escape route. There was just one problem. A Lamborghini can outrun a police car. It can't outrun physics. There's another interesting part of this story, because when people watch police pursuits involving exotic cars, the assumption is usually that the exotic car has an enormous advantage. And mechanically, it does. A Huracan is vastly faster than most police vehicles, but escaping from police isn't a drag race. There are radios, there are helicopters, there are cameras, there are other patrol units, and most importantly, there is the road. The faster the fleeing car travels, the smaller the driver's margin for error becomes. At 30 miles per hour, hitting a curb might destroy a wheel. At 113 miles per hour, that same curb can destroy the car. And that's essentially what happened on Sherman Way. The Lamborghini didn't need to be caught. The police only needed Dugan to make one mistake. He made it less than 2 blocks into the chase. By sunrise, the street looked like the aftermath of something much larger than a traffic accident. Pieces of Lamborghini were scattered across the roadway. The engine and rear portion of the car sat separated from what remained of the passenger compartment. Trees had been ripped apart. Parked vehicles had been damaged, and investigators began the long process of reconstructing a chase that had lasted only seconds. It's impossible to know exactly what Elliot Dugan was thinking when the officer told him to step out of the Lamborghini. Maybe he panicked. Maybe he believed the Huracan was fast enough to disappear. Or maybe there wasn't much thought involved at all. Just an open road, a 600 horsepower Lamborghini, and one terrible decision. But there is one final irony to the story. When police first encountered Elliot Dugan that morning, he wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't even moving. He was asleep. And had he simply woken up, stepped out of the Lamborghini, and surrendered, the most dramatic car chase of his life would never have happened. Instead, he drove one of the fastest production cars in the world for roughly 2 blocks. And those were the last 2 blocks he ever drove. If you like true stories about extraordinary cars, bizarre crashes, impossible escapes, and the people behind them, subscribe to Rapid Vehicles. And for collector cars, diecast models, and automotive memorabilia, visit RapidVehicles.com. We'll be back with another strange story from the automotive world.